Hi, and welcome to another episode of Freshwaves. Well, the holiday season is upon us. It comes every year at this time, but somehow always seems to take me by surprise. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Anyway, in the realm of looking for something interesting to give a person as a gift, giving a gift, often they say the best ones are the ones that you would always love to have, but you would never buy yourself. So things like memorabilia come to mind, where you can give someone a memory, a photograph, a book, a disc perhaps, or a hard drive full of old photographs that you have scanned and are now in a format that they can be shared with every family member. It may be too late to get that done before Christmas, but it's never too late to hand it to someone as a present and say, this is what I am getting for you, and then it shows up a couple of months later. Or it's the perfect time when you have family and friends around to say, let's gather all the old photographs, all the family photographs that we can, and let's get these things put into a format where we can all see them whenever we want. We can share them with people who need to see them, and then we can sort of have them archived in a way that is virtually indestructible. Well, I don't know. People said that about 8-track tapes, and look what happened to them. This morning, we have with us in the studio Russ Horner. Russ, welcome again to Fresh Waves. We just talked to you a couple of weeks ago. We're very happy to have you back for part 2.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me back again. I'm looking forward to our talk today.
Well, we're going to talk today mostly about your scanning part of your life as opposed to your character portrayal. You have a company called Descriptive Scanning.
Yes.
So tell me about some of the things that you scan. I mean, we're definitely into the photographs. We know that you scan old photographs. What else?
Well, it's great that you're asking that question because right now I am scanning just about, we are scanning actually, just about everything that we can scan or digitize. So right now we are scanning Super 8 movie films, VHS tapes, and high 8 camcorder tapes. I'm scanning a diary. We're scanning photos from photo albums, loose photos, documents, audio cassette tapes, and this is all going on right now. And then some I won't call them strange, but these are things that people may not think about digitizing, but it is a record because these items can also get lost in a box or thrown away by accident. Some old war crests, a couple metal electrician buttons. Are almost like sheriff badges, but they're metal and they're quite old. So they're digitized. Even a couple old military buttons that can be digitized and scanned. So it's a real variety right now, and this is the time of year when we do tend to get a lot of different things and a lot of it. So, and even there's a number of framed pictures as well. So yeah, it's a bit of everything really, and it keeps it interesting. It does. It's nice when all of the equipment is running and the different equipment is running, and it does make it interesting. And it is even more fun when it's delivered. Like we talked last time, my biggest thrill in this whole thing is delivering the final project. So they will see and what they get back is they don't get the photos back in their photo albums unless they really want them. Those albums are either garbage or they can be donated. And I do donate a lot of old photo albums for sure to our thrift store up here in Richmond Hill. Yeah, so a lot of different things can be digitized and maybe things that you don't normally think of.
And when they're digitized, then if you have people who have computers, then it's just easy to bring them up and they're not stuck in an old box in the corner somewhere where no one ever gets to see them.
Yeah, for sure, Bren. And truly, the reason why the business is called descriptive scanning is, and last time we talked about this, where I wish my grandparents and great grandparents had more things, and we do, and photographs and letters and diaries and things like that. It would be really nice. But what I encourage, even just with the name, is that if you have a photograph and it has no descriptive words or anything written on the back, then it becomes just anybody's photograph, and it could be something really interesting in your family. So yeah, Mike Filey, Toronto historian Mike Filey, he often gets photos sent to him, and he talks about it all the time, where he gets a photograph and it's maybe a picture of an old hotel or whatever, and it may be on Center Island or maybe a famous hotel, but with nothing inscribed on it, then it's just no good to anybody, really.
Well, that makes sense. It's I think what I'm doing right now with my family photos is going through them and thinking, okay, so that is a hotel somewhere. And I'm sure it meant something to my dad because he took the picture. Right. It has no inscription on it. I have no idea where in the world it is. And when it comes right down to it, unless it's really historical, like, we're talking Toronto back in 1905, you can find it on Google if you're going to go someplace in the world and go to a hotel. It's, Google it.
Yeah,
come up with all the hotels.
So true. And
is that a picture I want to keep? Probably not. It meant something to my dad because he went there, but it really doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's another really good point. A lot of people do sort through their photos and take out that beautiful picture of the daffodils, or the 10 pictures of that beautiful rose bush. There was a client actually in Newmarket who had 9,000 slides, and I went over to see him, and he whittled it down to 3,500. And he said, Russ, this took me 3 years to go through all of my photos and take out all those flowers and the buildings that I can Google and all of that type of thing. So you're right. But some people don't have that time. It's very, very time consuming, and they don't have that time to sort through them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they do give me instructions like that, Russ, because we will sort them out, but it's very time consuming, and sometimes they're judgment things. Well, there's this beautiful picture of the rosebud, but there's this picture of someone in the background. Do you want to keep that, or it's hard to sort out. But it is right. You're right. A lot of those things, those trips of taking pictures of the ocean and things like that. Well, is that something we want to keep, or do we just look it up later? And
I mean, you can look at it from a photographic integrity. So if it is a stunning photograph that could be in a calendar somewhere, maybe you keep it for the beauty of that photograph, the beauty of that moment, which can be spectacular. In the case of my dad, he loved roses and had a beautiful garden in his backyard with his prize roses. And he only took a picture. He was incredibly stingy. He would not spend 5 cents to get a photograph developed that wasn't worth developing. So I look at the roses and I think, you know what? I could put those ones in a little category of Grandpa's best roses.
Yes.
And then have all the pictures, and whoever wants to look at them can. Is there something to be said for the fact that if you have a massive amount, like I know you've done projects where there's 5,000 photographs,
35,000 even.
Oh my goodness. So in some of those cases, would it not be easier to decide what you want and what you don't want after the project is done, where you just hit delete on the computer and then you haven't missed anything? You haven't spent a year going through all of these photographs. You've simply said, here's the box, do it all. And then when I get it back, I'll go through them and say, delete, 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 delete. Keep. Yes,
100%. 100%. recommend to people, just get it done. If they don't have, people have busy lives. The pandemic has given maybe people more time to go in their basements and get those boxes of photos and films out and sort through them and so on. But really, my recommendation is just get it done. Don't wait. Don't. It is easier to just do it afterwards, delete afterwards. There's no question about it. My big thing is just encouraging people to just get them done. And that's the big thing. But absolutely, that's a great way to do it. The fellow with the 9,000 slides. I mean, slides are more expensive. So, to scan an extra 4,000 slides when he's going to throw them out anyway, that would be quite expensive to do. But certainly with photographs, they're a lot less expensive and to do. So that is the easiest way to sort, and you just save so much more time. To do that. So, and I just wanted to mention, getting back to the name descriptive scanning with your photographs, is we can label them for the client, put some descriptive words in it. The folders that pictures are in, we can name the folder Dad's Best Rose Pictures folder. We can do all that, but I do really encourage also to get them done, but also if you have a moment, even just write down someone's name on the back, as simple as that. So,
well, I have 4 kids, and you think at the time, yeah, you're never going to forget that kid's name. They're here every day. Why would I ever forget that kid's name?
Right.
And now, 20 years later, I look back and thinking, why did I have that kid in the photograph? Who was that kid? What was their name?
Well, that's true.
But you know what? I even asked the kids, and they have no idea. So you think you're going to remember the whole class picture and everybody who's in it because they're so important to you at that time. But I can honestly say that life is so complicated and goes so fast. And before you know it, you sit down and you think, that kid in the back row looks really familiar. Who is he? And you don't know.
Well, that's another really great point. And on the very first page on my website, it says, give the gift of legacy today. So it's not just thinking about us now and enjoying things now or who's around in our lives now. It's about the next generation and the next generation and the great grandkids and the great grandkids. That's what we need to think about when it comes to saving these documents and photographs and films and whatnot, is not just thinking about us now. We should do it now for our kids. Well, yeah, absolutely. But also think about the next generations of family members that will say, maybe one day, why didn't Aunt Bren get those films and photos done when she had all the technology to do it? And who are my great grandparents and aunts?
Yeah.
Why? It's all available now. So that's, and even with even VHS tapes and things, they're starting to get harder to digitize because they're starting to deteriorate and starting to go, and even photos are starting to get bumped around and getting tossed out by accident more often, and things like that. So for me personally, it's not just thinking about now, it's thinking about this gift of legacy, of the family legacy, the business legacy even right now. So of doing that now for future generations to enjoy as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the really important part. And, when you go to a funeral and someone has a slide presentation, many of the funeral homes will actually offer a scanning as part of the package. And let me tell you, it's not an inexpensive part of the package.
Right.
But you sit down, and I have seen people remove themselves from conversations and just sit and watch the photographs, totally mesmerized. And it's such a lovely thing to do. And why just do it at funerals or weddings? Why don't we do it when, people are not stressed and when they're not grieving and they can just sit down and enjoy them? And I find with family, if you put a slideshow together like that, I have one of those silly little boxes that I got for Christmas one year where, you just stick in a stick, the memory stick,
Yes.
and with photographs on it, and it just keeps rotating these photographs.
Yes.
Well, I've put it on the table after dinner and started rotating the photographs, and you can stop it whenever you want. And the conversations that arise from an old photograph where someone says, "Oh, that was Aunt Marg's best friend. Remember that weekend?" And the story starts, and all of a sudden you've got a whole conversation and a story that comes out of the photograph that you might not never have known.
Yeah, or have forgotten. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, no, that's very, very true.
Yeah. So it must be fun what you do. I'll have to
Well,
say that
it
as a
is.
little aside.
It's very interesting, and it's hard not to get caught up. What I love to do is, especially with the older pictures, once they're scanned, you can now, when you see an old photo, and some of them are actually quite small, like passport photo size or even smaller. They're very, very small, even a bit larger than that. It's very hard to see with just your naked eye detail of what's in that photograph. So once they're digitized, now you have an opportunity to see, boy, what exactly is in my dad's hand there, or what exactly are they eating, or what are they wearing, and what kind of shoes is my mother wearing in that picture? I mean, that's all. You can now start to zoom in, and to give you an example, and I love doing that because I love old outboard motors. Love outboard motors so much, and old cars, of course. But I had a client that had a picture of his father, who was in Britain serving during the war, and there was a photo of him, black and white photo of him in looked like a forest, and he had a long trench coat on, and not much other detail because the photo was really washed out. You couldn't see a whole lot. But anyway, he asked if I could see what I could do if I could fix that, and I was able to fix it substantially. And what it was a picture of his father sitting on, looked like a wooden box. And he had a little campfire in front of him, and there was forest around him. But when I zoomed into that picture, onto the box, on the side of the box was written, Christie's Biscuits. And he was sitting on the box upside down. So then I started, and this is just the way I like to think because I like to dig deep when it comes to little historical things. But I did some research on the writing of that Christie's that was used, the font used on the Christie's box. And I found out it was from Britain and it was from the 40s. And, just something little like that can just add so much to one single photograph. And there was a time that there was a photograph of 3 old cedar strip boats with 3 different colored outboard motors. One was orange, one was blue, and one was green. I knew the green one, but I wasn't sure of the other 2. And they're from a distance, so you couldn't read any labeling. So then I just put it out I asked the client, I said, can I put this picture out into social media and ask if anyone knows what these motors are? And sure enough, we found out what they were. And, so you can have fun, but that's the beauty of having them digitized as well. You can really get nice close-ups and zoom in to see people's faces and features and what's in the background. And I just call them hidden treasures because they really add so much more to a photograph. You look at a photograph, an old photograph that's quite small, maybe a little bit blurred or washed out or whatever, but once they're digitized, maybe fixed up a little bit, you can see it at a size that is so much easier to see and isn't just a kind of an image that you don't really know what it is. Yeah.
There would be little clues in the photograph that could tell you a timeline that perhaps was not known before. People say, oh, I wonder when this was taken. And, all of a sudden, with a pair of shoes or styles or whatever, or the font in the background that you now get larger. You know that was used in the 1940s. So at least you've got a decade that you can work with to try and figure out when this photograph was taken.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's lots of that. And that is fun. Even my own picture that I use as part of the website, and this picture is actually on the use it as part of the logo, and it's on the side of my car. This photograph, it's a picture of my great aunt and uncle from Airdrie, Scotland, and they look like Bonnie and Clyde. There's an old Model T in the background.
Yeah, they do actually.
He's got a like a tam. I don't know, I guess you call it a tam. He's got a cigarette hanging out his mouth, and he's carrying a suitcase with his wife beside him, who also has a suitcase, and he's got knickers on with these plaid socks, and he just looks they look like gangsters. Actually, I just love the photo. But you zoom in, and I didn't really notice when I saw the picture that he was wearing knickers, and it's just a really cool picture, and I spent a lot of time cleaning up that photograph, and you do get to, was she wearing a ring? Actually, I don't even remember if she was wearing a ring on her head, but it is fun to do that. That is a lot of fun when you get these old pictures, and you can just explore within the picture and find out all of these things. Another old picture, this was from the 1880s, 1890s, a beautiful picture of a husband and wife and a couple of their kids, but the background was very dark. And when I lightened up the dark part of the photograph, there were 4 more kids in the background.
Oh my.
So it is fun to do that. And anybody that gets their photographs digitized would have that opportunity to do that, especially the older ones, for sure.
Okay. Well, this is fascinating. We're coming up on our time to take our first break here. And when we get back, we'll continue our discussion with Russ Horner about digitizing, scanning, saving your memories. We'll talk on a little bit of scrapbooking, and we can also talk about saving the memories that are not so old. Maybe ones that are a little bit recent, but are worth saving. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and we'll be back right after this, so stay tuned. You're listening to Fresh Waves, and I'm your host, Bren Masson. If you'd like to hear this podcast again or more Fresh Waves podcasts, go to our YouTube channel. That's Fresh Waves Radio. You can hear all the podcasts there. If you'd like to get a hold of me with a show suggestion or a story that you have to share, then just email me at bren@freshwaves.ca. bren@freshwaves.ca. We love to hear from you. Now let's get back to the show. We're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we're speaking with Russ Horner. We're talking about digitizing, scanning, saving your memories. And of course, coming into the holiday season, as we spoke of in the beginning, it's not just a matter of, you're kind of a little late right now to be presenting a guy like Russ with 5,000 photographs and saying, I would like these for Christmas. I think you have to start thinking about a project like this probably back in the summertime. But what you can do now is when you are meeting with family and friends, which takes place over the next couple of months, is that you can definitely, while you're together, say, I'm working on this project. Can you give me all the photographs you have so that we can put them all together, and I'll keep yours separate and your name will be on them or whatever. And we will digitize all of these family memories so that everybody can have some. I know that in lots of cases when the last parent passes away, the siblings gather around and they say, well, I want this one and I want that one. And things get divided up, and then you never see those photographs again. And yes, that sibling's picture is in that photograph, but the whole family's kind of there. So everybody might want to have a copy of that photograph. You know what I mean? So it would seem that this is a nice time to kind of get those photographs together and then put the project together, and maybe do it at Christmas in the summertime when you do the halfway mark. The 6 months after Christmas, everybody get together just as an excuse and share their photographs and have a good laugh.
Great idea.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I think we should talk about is the fact that there are some recent memories that it doesn't all have to be 100 years old or 50 years old. Things like your kids' report cards or your kids' artwork, the kids' letters to Santa or letters to mom and dad, or how about some of their school projects? Those things can all be scanned and then they're kept forever in a much safer place than I keep finding things in boxes here, there, and everywhere, and I'll take pictures of them and share them on the family Signal group, and everyone gets a good laugh out of it. But these things should be kept somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of everything that you just described. We do a lot of report cards, a lot of Christmas cards, a lot of thank you cards, all of those types of things. Even old um, licenses that you keep in your wallet. Someone has passed away and they've got all their documents, their personal documents. All of those get scanned. They're all part of history. It's interesting because some of those documents provide more information, like how tall was my uncle. Well, it might say that on one of the documents, and I may already know that, but I always think about generations later, um,
Mm-hmm.
and what people might find interesting later on. So all of those things you described, definitely artwork, report cards, lots of report cards, doing some right now actually. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
all possible.
for security reasons, there are a lot of people who say that you should have all of your personal documents scanned before you go away anyway. Your health card, your passport, all these things should be scanned anyway. So it's probably just a good idea to get them scanned. I mean, while you're doing the project, just throw in those other things. The other
Yeah.
thing is that we were just talking about scrapbooking. So in the case of my dad, for example, I mean, we're using my family as an example because I don't want to use somebody else's situation without their permission, but feel free to talk about my family today. So my dad, for example, traveled all over the world. Lots of it was on business. Lots of it was personal because he liked geography, loved history, loved to see the world. So I could see photographing his passport, the whole book, and then using
Yes.
those pages as, the beginning of, well, he went to Europe. Oh, look at this, 15 times.
Wow.
Or he went to this country and that country and this country. Ooh, look at this. This is pretty weird. That country. That kind of thing would be good for a scrapbook in that it could give context to what the pictures are that you've put in.
Absolutely. So we do a lot of, um, I guess they're scrapbooks, but they're photo albums that have a lot more information in them. For the most part, when we get albums, people have a choice. They can take the photographs out of albums themselves, or they can keep them in. Um, and have us take them out. But it's such a lousy job. We charge for that service to take photos out, and if they want them back in the albums, that's more. Uh, it's a lousy job to do that. However, some albums are either scrapbooks or photo albums that have a lot of extra information in them, and they're either glued in or whatever. They're just hard to get out. They're in these photo albums called magnetic photo albums. They're not really magnetic.
No,
They
they're
just
not.
have that sticky part to it, and then they have a piece of cellophane over it. They're a real pain. And so those types of albums that are kind of like a scrapbook or have more information, then we will just scan that whole page. We won't destroy the integrity of what the person put together. And so that's how those are done. And just something about that, the old writing on old photographs. Sometimes you'll find those old photos in older scrapbooks or albums, and they do have old handwriting on the back that identify who is in the picture. And I'm talking photos from, well, any time really. But sometimes that really, it's not just for the information, but it's the old handwriting that is really quite interesting to see. So
Would you scan that photograph front and back then?
absolutely.
Now, how would you pair
If they
it?
want that, if the client wants that,
Okay, but
we
how
can
would
do
you
that.
pair it?
It gets, so every photograph is assigned a number, and the back of it would be the same number, but with a B
Oh,
beside
the
it.
B side.
B side. It would be the B side. That's right. That's right. Because that is almost key to the photograph. If you're
Right.
not willing to, and people say, no, we don't want the back scan. Well, okay, that's totally up to you. I understand. It's no problem, but it is an option. And but there's a lot of information on. There's sometimes a lot of information on the backs of photos, and to see when you get back to the 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 teens and the 20s and the 30s, and you're getting our grandparents and great grandparents handwriting and so on. It's really quite interesting, and that's a very important part of an older photograph. Sorry, I'm digressing a little bit from your original question.
You know, but it
that
does
part is
make
really
it
important.
does make sense. But I know my dad, for example, he used to hold a photograph up to the light and then scribble the name of the person on their head.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Well,
So when
yes.
you look at the back of the photograph, if I didn't have the context of that picture, you wouldn't know what was going on, because
That's really
they're all over the place because
Right.
he's writing on their heads in the back.
That's really, really funny.
Yeah. So that also says a lot about the character of the person, I think.
Yeah, that does. It does. It does. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Wow.
when you're talking about, I see on your website here, you also do audio cassettes and reel-to-reel tapes. So
Right.
you would just take that and put it into an MP3 or something?
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. So a lot of the old audio tapes are quite old, and they're some people don't know, and it goes with films too, like the old films. A lot of people don't know what's on. Well, even newer than that, even the old camcorder tapes that aren't that old, people don't have the equipment anymore to view them. So it's the same with audio tapes. They'll say, we don't know what's on it. We think it may be a family reunion and the children talking for the first time. There could be all sorts of personal family type information on those audio tapes. But like old films, even old camcorder tapes that aren't that old, even VHS tapes, a lot of people just don't have the equipment to even find out what's on these things. So audio tapes are no different. They can easily be previewed, whether it's an audio tape or a videotape or 8mm film tape. They can all be previewed to find out what's on them. But yeah, some of those audio tapes are really, and the reel-to-reel tapes are the same because they're before video cameras. So this is where people recorded their lives. Some of the old reel-to-reels that I've done are from the 40s. One was an Italian family on New Year's Eve, going from 1949 to 1950. And here are the grandparents. They would have been the great-grandparents of my client, singing in Italian and playing piano and that type of thing, and just a huge treasure. So the old audio tapes can't be ignored either. They're really, really important because they're not photographs, they're not videos, they're right in that middle gap of recording family history. So in a step up from just a photograph, now you've got audio, which is great. And so, yeah,
Well,
very, very important and fascinating.
I'll tell you that my dad, when he was a young guy, his first job was working for Marconi. And
Wow.
we actually had a reel-to-reel audio player and recorder in our house. And that was extremely unusual. And the only reason it happened is because my father worked for Marconi. And I have the tapes, but I haven't got the equipment. I think my brother threw them out. I haven't got the equipment to play it back on. And
Right.
I know that my sister, my brother, and I would come in from, there's one that's really funny because we came in from tobogganing, and I remember this because my dad threw a microphone in front of our face and said, "Didn't we have fun tobogganing today?" And I was about 5, and I'm saying, "Yeah, it was great. We were going down the hill, and it was really fast, and it was nice." And my sister's in the background going, "My hands were freezing." She was only 3. And every time I'd say how much fun it was, she'd go, "My hands are freezing." And we would love to hear that audio tape again. I've told my kids about it, but I have no way of playing it for them.
Right. Right.
So now I could if I gave them to you.
You can't, absolutely. And even one job we just finished, it was quite a lot. It was an estate project, so there was a mix of everything, and nothing was sorted. There were photos in frame still, just a huge box and a bit of everything, including 42 of those mini dictaphone tapes.
Oh my goodness.
And the client had no idea what was on them, so he asked if I could preview them to find out what was on them. So I did a preview. I didn't listen to all of them, but I gave him a list of everything that was on them. A lot of them were work related, but some of them were personal, like a personal diary, which was not interesting to me, but to him they could be. And the thing about those tapes is that there are two. You remember those little tapes, right?
Yeah.
The little dictaphone tapes. Well, there's 2 different kinds. There's a mini and there's a micro. So 2 different size of tapes, but either one can house personal diaries and singing or who knows what's on it. And they're worth taking a look at, or at least previewing. And I'm happy to do that because I understand that people don't have the equipment anymore to do that.
Right.
Even one of the jobs that we're doing right now, these 8mm, Super 8 films, he had no idea. I do have a non-electric, well, except for the lamp in it, a non-electric film previewer. So I just lent it in Stouffville. I just lent it to him. Said, "You take that, enjoy. I'll talk to you in a week and see what you want to do." And so even just it's a tough thing because people can't preview these items because they just don't have the equipment anymore. So
now, what about going to, okay, I do have all those photographs, and I'm not going to lie and tell you that in my project, I have not checked out going to one of the big box stores and picking up a scanner and doing it myself. So why would someone not go and do just that? Pick up a scanner for $250 and do it themselves. Why would they use you instead?
Well, definitely people can do that. People do that for sure, and that's awesome. So I can tell you what I do.
Okay.
When someone brings me there, and we'll just talk about slides and paper photographs. So for paper photographs, and it has happened this past weekend when I was working on some photos. Someone brought in some photos for someone that had passed away, and they needed these to put together a slide memorial. So beautiful collection of family photos. There's about there's over 200 of them. And that was great. But there was a few that they were the oldest in the batch. And I'm guessing the early 40s. And they were beautiful pictures, yet they were heavily damaged. They were faded. There was a big scratch going through the face of this person. And so someone to have the original version of that on a slideshow or a book or whatever it is, maybe they would like that. Maybe I understand, that patina is important, but to a certain extent, I always think about what was the photographer's original intention of that photograph when he took that picture? Was it to have a scratch across the person's face or not? I don't think so. So I like to provide options and say, would you like me to fix that up? In this case, for these, there was just a few of them. It's very easy for me to go in and clean up a whole picture. It for the most part, it doesn't take a long time to take out the specks, the scratches, um, repair corners, change a color. For the most part, it doesn't take a lot of time, but it adds so much to the photo. So in this case, they got the original scan that I did, but they also got a cleaned up version, which I was happy to do,
Mm-hmm.
and and they can make the choice what they want to do. So that's one of the reasons why someone may want to go with someone like us because we can offer that. When we scan the pictures, we straighten them, we crop them if they need cropping. We can organize them in a way that you want them organized. I mean, you could do that yourself too, but um, so there's a few different reasons why you would want to come to someone like me to do that,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And not
so
the least of which is the fact that when you look at the scope of things that you do, a photograph is just one thing. And it's very slow to do the flatbed scanning.
it
It's
is.
much faster when it goes through the feeder. However, if anyone remembers the old photocopiers or even new ones for that matter, and you're photocopying away and all of a sudden you put something through the feeder and it gets all crushed up and it's going to get stuck in the feeder. That's why you don't use a feeder for photographs by and large. You tend to use a flatbed where you're handling the photograph in a much more delicate way. Or the
Right.
document. Can you imagine having a certificate of some sort of award of excellence and it gets jammed in the feeder?
So
Oh my goodness.
yeah, so we do have high speed photo scanners that do have rollers. We do have those, but they're
Mhm.
designed for photographs. They're not designed for sensitive documents or old documents, but we do have protectors for that if we choose to use those scanners for something that is delicate. But normally we would use the flatbeds for that. So, and we did talk about, I think last time, we are doing these rare historical documents for a museum out in Vancouver. These are documents, uh, the people that have these, they only have one of them, and they're quite old. I won't say what they are, but they're quite old and unique and quite fragile. They're from the turn of the century. And these are ones where I go to the home to actually scan it, and I only use a flatbed for uh, that sort of thing. So you're limited with a flatbed. You're limited with a scanner that has rollers on it. But you do whatever you do that you think is best for that particular item.
I have a photograph
Mhm.
of my grandfather, and he was a professor at Ryerson. And one year in the 1940s, I guess, so it was late 40s, early 50s, this photograph was taken of all of the teachers. So I can tell you that it's 2 feet wide, at least, if not a little bit more, black and white. And my dad's in it, my grandmother's in it. I don't know who any of the other professors are. And it was rolled up like a scroll
Yes.
with the photo on the outside. I think if
Yes.
I had the picture, I would have rolled it with the photo on the inside, but who's to say? And it may have been rolled up for 50 years.
Right.
And I'm not kidding. You cannot unroll this thing. I unroll it to look at it, and there's a little rip in the
Wow.
corner, and every time it gets unrolled for someone to see it, it gets a little more ripped because it's
Yeah.
so tightly wound. How would you deal with something like that?
Yeah, that's tough. I would try a couple. I would use heat, like a blow dryer, which I do use on photographs that are stuck in albums. I do get a blow dryer with a spatula, and once if there are any glues or anything else involved, it may just help loosen the surfaces up a little bit. Certainly for photo albums, it works beautifully. Um, but Yeah, I'm not sure in that case what to do. And our professional archivist would probably know the answer to that, or maybe even a library. But um, I've also heard you could try freezing that photograph to see if that helps. But those are the two things that I use.
Hmm.
Mostly the blow dryer. Don't burn it or anything like that, but just heat it up, get it nice and warm, and see if that helps. With a not too sharp of an instrument to help kind of get underneath it a little bit or beside it to start peeling it off. So that might help.
Yeah, well, this one isn't on the back of anything. It's just rolled.
Just
The
rolled.
whole
Yeah,
photograph is just rolled up. I
that's
was
too
actually
bad.
thinking maybe I should get some heavy books, but I don't know if that would even help at this point. Anyway,
Yeah.
I will give it to you and you can try and figure it
Sure,
out.
love to try. Well, and even photographs like that. There is a photo on the website. Let me just get it right now. Uh, there is a photo on the website the of a battalion photograph. One of those old battalion photos that are about, I don't know, maybe 8 inches high and about 2.5 feet wide, and there's about
Wow.
200 soldiers uh, in it. So things like that can be scanned. We can definitely scan something like that here of that size. And in that case, that was a project that I did for the Legion, and it it was heavily damaged, and it shows. It's hard to see on the website, but there is the original shown on it, and then the fixed version, and a blow up of one of the privates that was in the photograph. And there's a
Hmm.
dog in it, but heavily damaged.
Hmm.
So every that was a long project. Every so We fixed up every soldier, and by the end of it, I was hearing voices of of those guys talking to each other. Russ, can you do something with Jim's hair down in row number one? And because it's person after person, and it was a thrill fixing it for sure, and presenting it back to the family who were Legion members. So those very large documents and photos can be done. No problem. It's good to have a look at it first, for sure.
Right. Now we are running out of time. Can you tell us a little bit about this veterans project that you have going here? Like it seems
Oh,
like you do veterans for free or something?
yes. Well, not everything, but not if a family member. So basically, if a family member has a photograph of a veteran that may be in need of repair, then you can send it to us. You can send the original to us, and we are happy to fix that up so it's presentable. And we'll scan it and fix it and send it back to you. And there's no charge for that service. And
Isn't that nice?
well,
What
we've
a
done a
nice
lot
way
of
of
them.
giving back.
Well, it is, and we are. My uncle was in the Second World War. My dad was trained, his basic training up in Petawawa, and had the war end lasted a couple more months. He would have gone overseas as well, and I'm a Legion member and do a lot of work at our Legion, and it's important to me, and it is a way to give back,
Hmm.
and it's a simple way, and it's amazing what has come across our tables. Just so many beautiful photographs, and sometimes it's the only photograph that is around of a loved one in uniform, and so we're happy to do that. It's a very small token of our appreciation, anyway, of our armed forces, past and
Great.
present.
Well, as always, we have a conversation with you and the time just flies by. So we're out of time here on Fresh Waves for this week. And I don't want to sound like an infomercial, but I really do think that what you do is great work. And I think it's really important for people to know. I've had a number of inquiries since the last show that we did asking about these kinds of things from a scrapbooking group and also from someone who has about 2,000 slides that they would like to get digitized. So for anyone who wants more information about you and what you do, how can they find you?
Well, they can definitely look the company up on Google, descriptivescanning.ca. We do have a toll-free number, 833-722-6464. So always around.
Okay, thanks so much for your time, Russ. It was really interesting speaking with you today. We've been speaking with Russ Horner, and he is the proprietor of Descriptive Scanning. I'm your host, Bren Masson. This has been another wonderfully interesting episode of Fresh Waves. I hope that everyone has a fabulous day, and remember, be kind to each other and always choose kindness. It's just a simple rule to live by. Thanks for tuning in to Fresh Waves.